Hey, this is Mike from the Run Testers, and it is verdict time on the Asics Sonicblast. Now, in our first run video, it was myself and Nick giving you some early thoughts on the new Asics Sonicblast, which launched alongside the Megablast. Now, in this video, myself, Nick, and Kieran will give you our full test thoughts. Before we get into that, we'll tell you where the Sonicblast fits within that Blast family, a little bit of those key stats as well, get into those running thoughts, and I'll let you know whether we are a fan of the Asics Sonicblast. So let's get you up to speed with what the Asics Sonicblast is all about. The Sonicblast is a daily trainer built with more up-tempo running in mind. Think Novablast, which it sits above, but with a faster, more responsive edge to it. The Sonicblast costs £170 in the UK and $180 in the US, making it considerably more expensive than the Novablast 5 and considerably cheaper than the new Megablast. It's a shoe with an 8mm drop and stack heights of 46mm at the heel and 38mm at the forefoot. Our UK men's size 8 weighed in at 260 grams or 9.2 ounces. Available in a standard width option only, you've got a breathable mesh upper with a dual density midsole below. That's made up of FF Blast Max, which features in the Novablast 5, and the FF Turbo Squared Foam, also found in the Megablast. Between that lies a 3/4 P-Bax plate that Asics calls its Astro Plate to offer snappier and more propulsive ride. The outsole is an Asics grip one that's designed to give you enough rubber to tackle a mixture of terrain.
When it comes to the fit of the Asics Sonicblast, I've got my usual size here, which is a UK 9, US 10, and I've got a really good fit with the shoe. Got enough room around the toes, good hold around the heel and midfoot. There's a little bit of padding there, but nothing that's too oppressive or overwhelming, and the upper has breathed pretty well for me throughout runs in hot weather. So yeah, I was very happy with the fit of the Sonicblast, and I would stick to your normal size. It's the same size I have across the whole Asics range.
So when it comes to fit, I ran on a UK 8.5, US 9.5. That is my regular Asics size. I found the fit to be pretty close to spot on in this shoe. This is a much roomier shoe up front than the Megablast, with a lot of clearance across the top of the toe box from uppers that will sit higher away from the toes. There's also really good length and clearance at the end of the shoe. So what you've got here is a really nicely accommodating fit in the forefoot. Then moving back up the shoe, I got good midfoot hold. You don't get the sawtooth laces of the Megablast, but I had no trouble getting what is a pretty standard lacing setup here nicely dialed in. No lace pinch, even though you've got this kind of familiar now sort of thin wrapping tongue. The heels hold well for me, and there's enough padding here to make this a comfortable shoe over longer runs, but not too much that it feels bulky or overbuilt for those shorter, faster efforts as well. So it's really nicely balanced overall, and I would recommend going true to size.
So fit and the upper in general is definitely something I would say is a highlight on the Sonicblast. I'd also say that I think from a fit point of view, it's maybe not going to be the most friendly to those with wider feet. It's only available in that one standard width fit option. It is quite narrow fitting in general, so that's definitely something to keep in mind here with the Sonicblast. Things that I like, I think the midfoot and the heel lockdown is very good on this shoe. I like the feel of the upper in general. It's thin but not overly kind of thin and flimsy, and there's still some kind of structure and support there in that upper. The toe box generally has been good. It does feel like a shoe that runs a little bit long. But I do think if I change from my usual size, which I have got here, which is a UK size 8, I'd worry it would be sitting a little bit too close to my toes. So I would still go true to size in this shoe. The laces and the tongue, you've got this quite skinny tongue, which does take a little bit of initial kind of fiddling around to get a good lockdown there. But once it's there, it's going to stay put, and it has done it in my runs. The heel collar, the padding has been fine. It's not overly generous. It's not too thin either. So you are getting some support there and some comfort around that part of your kind of foot. The heel counter is not very stiff at all. So if that's something you're concerned about, that's not something you're going to get here. And I haven't had any irritation or kind of issues around that area of the shoe either. So the biggest takeaways I would say is that maybe it isn't the most friendly for wider feet. I think the lockdown and the heel and the midfoot is very good, and while it runs a little bit long, I would still go true to size in this shoe.
So I've run around 95 kilometers in the Asics Sonicblast, and I've used it for quite a wide mix of training runs in that time to test out its versatility. It's included some very easy runs, even recovery runs, some mild progression runs, kind of easy to steady stuff, and then some flat out workouts, either hard progressions with some race paces thrown in, or full race pace tempo runs, that kind of thing. My overarching feeling with the shoe is that it is effective. Like every run I've done in it, it's delivered the goods. I do think it has a fast ride, a punchy ride, and one that works well for quite a wide range of runs, but I don't love the feel of it myself. I find it a little bit blocky, a little bit wooden, a little bit firmish with the plate in there, and yeah, it's not a shoe that I necessarily rank ahead of quite a few other plated shoes. So the ride is snappy. You get a lot of response off that FF Turbo squared foam, and with the plate in there as well, there's a lot of response and energy return off the forefoot in particular. It's also pretty stable thanks to the plate in there, and the fact I think this turbo squared foam that Asics is using is firm enough to feel pretty stable underfoot for me. But with the Megablast, the other shoe that Asics launched with this FF Turbo squared foam, there was no plate in there, and it was all FF Turbo squared. And it gives the ride of the Megablast a little bit more softness and flexibility, while also making it a slightly lighter shoe. And the ride feel for me is considerably better than the one on the Sonicblast, which I think does lean too far into stiffness and does snap through a bit too much as a result, and I get a little bit of a slap in the ride to it, and it accentuates the kind of blockiness at the back of the shoe, which is something that all of these Asics super trainers seem to have, the Superblast, the Megablast, the Sonicblast. But with the Megablast, it's smoothed out a bit more than I found in the Sonicblast, which did feel, like I say, quite snappy coming through from the heel. And while it produced the goods in terms of a lot of energy return and it wasn't uncomfortable, I didn't get any discomfort under my forefoot from that, it just didn't feel that fun to run fast in. And at easy paces it's okay, but again, it's just not as fun as some other shoes out there. So as a plated trainer, I have used it for some pretty hard runs. I've done a 10k at 3:30 per k pace and a pretty tough progression run I think I talked about in the first run in the shoe, and like I say, it has hit those fast paces pretty well. I also think it's a pretty solid interval shoe because it has got quite a snappy ride. You can really gun it in this shoe for like 400 meters, that kind of thing. But when it comes to maintaining paces over long distances, that's where the ride feel doesn't really lessen performance, but just doesn't. I don't enjoy it as much. Like when I've been cruising along at those tempo paces in something like the Megablast, or more rockered, kind of smoother, slightly softer super trainers like the Hoka Mach X2 and 3 or the Nike Zoom Fly 6. I just prefer the ride feel of that. I think it gives a bit more comfort. I'm not sure how I'd feel about the Sonicblast going for really long distances. I think it's comfortable enough. I just don't think I'd enjoy it as much as those other shoes. So while I do think the Sonicblast is a good plated trainer that can handle the range of runs you'd want from a plated trainer, I think it lacks a little bit in terms of ride feel, in terms of bounce and enjoyment. And I think it's got a little bit of that blockiness we're having with some of these Asics shoes. That means it loses a little bit of its edge at really fast paces. So that's another area where I think it falls short of some of these other plated trainers I've talked about, which have a bit more kind of smoothness and verve, and feel better at holding fast paces over long distances because I have that more flowing ride than I had with the Sonicblast.
Now in testing, I have run well over 30 miles in the Asics Sonicblast, including a 1 hour 45 solo half marathon, an all-out 1200 metres at 5:45 mile pace at the Asics Megablast track meet here in London. Plus I've done some mixed pace runs, moving from easy up to 5k pace. I've done all of that on the road, and I also did most of that off the back of testing the Megablast as well. So I've got a really sort of interesting comparison, close comparison between these two shoes. We'll have a video on that as well on the channel soon. Now overall, I'm a fan of the Sonicblast. This is my kind of shoe. The dual foam setup with that mix of Flight Foam Blast Max and Flight Foam Turbo Squared delivers a great balance of cushioning with pop that I find works well when you pick up the speed. The Pebax Astra plate that sits between those foam layers adds a lot of stiffness and injects, I think, some really welcome snap and propulsion into the proceedings. And that creates the kind of ride that I really like. It's cushioned, it's energetic, but with some rapid return and some immediate resistance in the foot strike. The midsole I find really engages nice and quick. It's not that kind of soft and over compression you get with some shoes. Now it's a heavier shoe than the Megablast, and it's definitely not in the same big bouncy ballpark as trainers like the Megablast that come with that kind of high compression midsole. So if that's what you're after, the boingy shoes, this isn't your shoe. On the flip, I think the Sonicblast is comparatively stable and consistent for a big stack shoe, certainly more so than Megablast, and I really like the reliability underfoot. It's certainly made them a better option for my all-out on the track than the Megablast. It also helped me hold 5:45 mile pace for 1200 metres, having run a half marathon to get to that track. So in terms of efficiency and performance and leg sparing, it definitely helped legs that needed something. The Sonicblast obliged. Over the hour and 45 half marathon distance, I had a lot of bobbing and weaving through mayhem in central London on a strike day. And this is a nimble shoe that can handle twists and turns as well. Not all shoes with this kind of stat cope as well. So that is another tick I've found. I also had no concerns with comfort over that sort of time on feet. And I think this could be a good long run shoe where you want to add in fast miles. I'm thinking like a long marathon training run where you're mixing in those kind of faster pace intervals. When it comes to easy days and recovery, I think the firmer edge might not suit all runners, particularly those who like super cushion on easy days, but I don't mind going slow in a snappy shoe. And so I found it all really happily versatile, not a million miles away from the range that you'll get from the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5, where you're kind of trading some sort of that super cushion and protection for the upper pace potential, but not so much that it stops you wanting to be able to use them to move slower as well. Now, I ran that run, the half marathon, in some seriously wet conditions, twisting and turning through crazy chaotic central London on a tube strike day. The Asics grip was excellent. I also didn't have any trouble with them holding water. These uppers are really nice and airy and avoided getting too sodden.
So I just ticked over 50k in the Asics Sonicblast, and I focused my testing on using this shoe for the types of runs that Asics says it's best designed for. So interval runs, kind of tempo runs. I've used it at my 5k and 10k pace. I have kind of tried to cruise my half marathon and marathon pace. I've used it for a track session. I've also tried to ease off in this shoe because, as we've seen with other Blast kind of shoes, particularly the Super Blast and the Novablast, those are absolutely shoes that you can comfortably ease off in. So Novablast 5 is an important shoe to mention at this point because there's definitely some similarities between that shoe and the Sonicblast. Namely the fact that you've got that FF Blast Max foam in the Sonicblast. So you've got the FF Blast Max foam, then you've got a P-Bax plate. It's a 3/4 plate, not a full length one. And then you've also got this kind of layer of FF Turbo squared cushioning technology, which offers a bit more bounce, a bit more liveliness, bringing something more in accordance with the kind of Meta Speed range and giving you something a little bit more lively along with that plate that's in there as well. I would say absolutely when I've run harder and faster in this shoe, that's where it's felt nicest. As I said, in those early runs that I did, it definitely felt a little bit blocky, a little bit firm, a little bit too dense. I was hoping that that would kind of ease off, it would soften up a little bit. Not too much, but just enough to make it feel a little bit more comfortable to run in. That has definitely happened, and that's definitely improved my experience from those early runs in the Sonicblast. Now, when I have tried to run faster and harder in this shoe, absolutely, I think there's qualities here that you'd want to see in a kind of faster focused shoe. So there's some bounce there, there is some responsiveness there and some snap. That plate does kind of create something that does propel you a little bit more as well. I think in terms of that geometry, in terms of combining those things, I think there's something in that ride that just doesn't quite work for me. I think, yes, there is some bounce, there is some responsiveness, there is some snap there, but I think in terms of bringing those things together, I don't think it always works in the most effective way. And I feel like absolutely when I've used it in a track session, it absolutely feels like a shoe that I've enjoyed at kind of running at my 5k, 10k paces. But I just think there's some awkwardness in that experience. I don't know, as I said, whether it's in something in that geometry, how those things are packaged together. It doesn't feel, I mean, it is a smooth shoe, but I also don't think it's a very fluid shoe. And I think those things for me are very different. I think, yes, it's smooth means that it's comfortable and it feels like a pretty stable shoe for an up-tempo shoe. But I think in terms of the fluidness of that ride, I don't think it's quite what I expected. I think I look at something like the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5. That ride is fluid from kind of heel to toe. I think there's aspects in the ride. I think, you know, the package doesn't quite click into gear all of the time. And I think in terms of being a shoe that I can ease off or want to ease off in, I think you introduce some of that awkwardness into the experience. And I wouldn't say that it feels as comfortable as the Novablast or the Super Blast to do that. So I think, yeah, absolutely you use it where it's best kind of suited. As I say, faster sessions, tempo, interval runs. I just think there's something in that geometry, in that design, and what's in this shoe that doesn't always feel like it's working together in the most effective way. Thoughts on the durability and outsole performance on the Sonicblast, and I'm liking what I'm seeing here on this shoe. I'll start with the outsole. Now, you're not getting huge amounts of rubber here, but what you are getting is good coverage in that forefoot area. You are getting a little bit less at the heel, you're getting some exposed areas around that heel area and also into the middle of this shoe. You can see that P-Bax plate is exposed as well. Now, usually as a heel striker, I'd expect to see some wear or noticeable wear around the kind of heel area. I'm not seeing that just yet on the Sonicblast, so I think that's a good sign. I feel like the durability side of things, it's not going to be, above average. I don't think it is going to be below average. It's going to sit somewhere in between. It is a shoe designed to handle all of your training time, be a shoe you can race in and probably go a marathon in it. I think it would be comfortable enough and kind of give you enough life to do that and cover a lot of your training time. So I feel confident about that. So from that side of things, I think you're going to get a good performance out of the Sonicblast. So yeah, there's definitely some good qualities, I think, in the Sonicblast shoe. I think when I have used it where it's best utilised, that's where it works best. Is it the best of these types of shoes, these kind of fast super trainer shoes? I'll get into that in the verdict.
Verdict on the Sonicblast, I think it's a perfectly good shoe, a shoe that will do its job in being a versatile plated trainer. It's fine at easy paces, it's solid enough at faster ones. I just think there are lots of shoes out there that I prefer to do all those runs in to the Sonicblast, and some of them are a bit cheaper as well. Not sure how Asics is going to frame this within its range going forward, whether the Magic Speed line will be discontinued or come back in a slightly different form with maybe a softer feel than you have here with the Sonicblast. But even within the Asics range, I do think the Megablast and the Superblast are better all-round super trainers. You are going to pay a little bit more for them, but they are lighter shoes, more fun to run in, a bit softer and more flexible when it comes to easy runs, and just as fast. And actually, I think the Megablast is a bit smoother and faster for me than the Sonicblast with the way it rolls very nicely. They are a bit more expensive, but you can get really top plated training shoes for less than the Sonicblast that I do rate a little bit more highly. Nike Zoom Fly 6 would certainly be one with a softer ride, a bouncier ride, a lighter design, a lower price tag. I think it's a better all-round shoe in this category to do kind of any kind of run-in. So yeah, that would be one I'd mention for sure. Saucony Endorphin Speed 5 is a lower stack shoe, but I think again a better all-rounder, really nice smooth ride, feels really fast. I think it's definitely got a faster ride than the Sonicblast, and I have no problems with its comfort at easy paces. The Mac X2 is a lighter, faster, bouncier, more fun plated trainer. The Mac X3 is a bit more comfortable than the Mac X2 by having a better upper, and while it's a little bit heavier than the Sonicblast, I found it as effective for fast runs because I do think the midsole setup is a bit better on the Hoka in terms of the geometry and how well it flows from heel to toe. So yeah, there's a few shoes there that I would have ahead of it. There's also the Adidas Adizero Evo SL, which we have to mention in every review because it's making lots of other shoes look like fools by being so good for £130, and again, that's a shoe I prefer to the Sonicblast. The Sonicblast is a bit more stable, which if you're looking for that, and it has a higher stack height, which some people might prefer, but the Adizero Evo SL is a much lighter shoe, a faster shoe, a really comfortable shoe that has more fun as well, that I prefer doing fast runs in, and I don't mind doing easy runs in. Sonicblast is a touch more stable, but yeah, you're going to save a lot of money by going for the Evo SL, and I think it's a better all-round shoe. So while the Sonicblast, is a solid addition to the Asics range, I think the Megablast is the standout of these two new shoes with the FF Turbo Squared foam in, and Sonicblast doesn't feel like it's bringing anything new to the whole plated trainer environment. I think there are better options available for less.
So verdict time on the Asics Sonicblast. Now, I thought I was going to absolutely love this shoe. I think it has all the ingredients to make it a great kind of fast daily trainer, super trainer, whatever you want to call it. I've come away not quite feeling like that during my time. I think, absolutely it's fit for the job in terms of being good for your tempo runs, your faster workouts. But in terms of being standout in terms of delivering that experience, I think there are better shoes that also promise similar things. I think the obvious one would be the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5. Maybe isn't as stable as the Sonicblast, but I think in general the experience feels slicker, faster, and I would feel I'd get a more enjoyable kind of racing experience from that shoe, as well as being a training partner as well. I think also you've got things like the Adidas Evo SL, which is cheaper, again, offers similar qualities. Again, maybe isn't as stable as a Sonicblast, but I think, I would say kind of is a lot more comfortable to ease off in compared to the Sonicblast. So maybe has a touch more that kind of likable versatility about it as well as being good for kind of faster workouts too. And then I'd also put in things like the Hoka Mac 6, which is a little bit older now, but I still think it's a good value shoe and can do similar things. You've got the Hoka Mac X2, X3 as well. Those kind of Hoka shoes that kind of sit in that kind of fast super trainer kind of category, those would probably be shoes I would look at as an alternative to the Sonicblast as well. So I don't think it's a bad shoe. I just think there are better shoes out there. I think also you can look at the fact that there are other shoes in the Asics range which are probably going to give you qualities of the Sonicblast, and I think just do it in a nice way. I think I've just spent time, or started to spend time, in the Megablast. I think maybe is a better showcase for this new kind of cushioning technology that's in the Sonicblast as well. You've got the Superblast in there as well too. Now those are more expensive than this shoe, but I think in general they would probably be the shoes that I would still feel comfortable using for faster sessions and still feeling like I can coast in those shoes as well, which I didn't feel like I got the same qualities from the Sonic Blast. As I said, I don't think this is a bad shoe. I just don't think it's a shoe that I've absolutely loved and works best for me. But I also think there are other kind of fast, up-tempo daily trainer shoes, super trainers, that offer a better all-round experience and are either, slightly cheaper, or I just think in general just work better for me overall.
Verdict then, and I think the Sonic Blast is a winner. This is a genuinely good plated super trainer from Asics that for me definitely outshines the Novablast. I think it probably outshines the Megablast for the way that I use shoes as well. I think it even sits happily alongside the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5 as a shoe that can genuinely do it all. It strikes almost the perfect balance of sort of spring and energy with cushion and control. It's fun, fast, it's easy to get comfortable in. I really like the extra stiffness in the snap that comes from the plate. In fact, I think I prefer it to the Megablast for almost everything except for moving around marathon pace, where I think the Megablast has a really good sweet spot and is a really effective shoe, particularly for long hauling. For faster efforts, I would choose the Sonic, maybe even for slower efforts as well, though I personally don't mind running slow in a stiffer shoe. I prefer it to have a bit more control. When I say I think it can do everything, I would include racing up to the marathon, though I wouldn't have it as my first choice for obvious reasons. But like the Endorphin Speed 5, I think this shoe could certainly carry a lot of runners around a marathon. And at £170, I think it's quite smartly priced when you consider what the Saucony Endorphin Speed's going to cost you. So this one comes in cheaper. I think there's quite a lot of value for this, even though it is sort of towards the top end of what you'll pay for a daily trainer if you're sort of cutting out all those ones that are starting to go £200 and more, which I think are anomalies more than the rule. So yeah, I think the Sonic Blast is a winning shoe. I've really enjoyed my miles in it, and yeah, definitely one that I would stick in a suitcase and take to do lots and lots of my runs if I were going travelling, that kind of thing. A really good versatile option. I think a lot of people are going to like it.